Let's dive right into this explainer because today we're dropping straight into the middle of one of the absolute most high-stakes, nerve-wracking matches in Premier League history. I mean, think about the sheer, agonizing grind of a 38-game English football season, right? Months of physical exhaustion, endless tactical battles, unbelievable mental strain, and it all funnels down to this exact 90-minute pressure cooker. We're looking at a day that literally defined an entire season, a day packed with incredible highs, shocking indiscipline, and ultimate heartbreak. So let's head to the Emirates Stadium to unpack the palpable, almost suffocating tension between Arsenal and Manchester City.
The atmosphere inside the stadium was absolutely electric. But, for Manchester City, it was a suffocating, almost unbearable environment. The reality is spelled out right here. If Manchester City lose today, their title dream is over. It's a terrifying do-or-die scenario. Every single pass, every sliding tackle, literally every second ticking away on the clock carries the massive crushing weight of an entire Premiership campaign. There's zero margin for error here. One slip, one little hesitation, and boom, a year's worth of sweat just vanishes.
And hovering over this entire match is this massive, inescapable shadow. Because a failure for City doesn't just mean a quiet loss on the day, no, it means handing the ultimate prize directly to their most bitter-hated rivals. As the commentators so perfectly and gravely captured, a slip-up here likely takes the crown once more to Old Trafford. Just let that sink in for a second. Manchester United is watching, they're waiting, and they are perfectly positioned to capitalize on any City mistake.
Moving into our first section, the squeeze, Arsenal's incessant early pressure.
Right from the opening whistle, Arsenal didn't just play football. They put a desperate, panicked Manchester City side into an absolute vice grip. Arsenal comes out completely flying. They make all the early running, and City immediately looks rattled. We see blatant early fouls by City, very early yellow cards. They simply don't have any other options to stop the bleeding. Then a deflected shot by Razaki screams past the defense. Arsenal is applying severe, suffocating pressure down the right-hand side. And there's this constant, overwhelming, dizzying movement from players like Gibbs and Bennion. The pressure is just incessant. For the first 5 minutes, it's total, unyielding domination.
The fans in the stadium are literally on the edge of their seats, and the burning question hanging in the air is, can they actually turn it into a goal? It's been a terrific, blistering start by Arsenal for sure, but can they actually find the back of the net? You can feel the heart-pounding anticipation building, multiplying, with every single red and white wave of attack crashing against the City defense. Well, these rapid-fire near misses dramatically ratcheted up the tension to an almost unendurable level. First, Arsenal forces a corner. Then, Robin van Persie finds his way through the absolute chaos in the box, leaps, and his header violently smashes against the crossbar. The entire crowd just gasps. And then, right on the ricochet, Razaki heads the rebound just inches over the target. It's honestly a total miracle that City survived this early onslaught, but the warning bells are ringing incredibly loud in the ears of every single City defender right now.
Which brings us to our next section, the circus, the Balotelli chaos factor.
So the fatal threat to Manchester City's title hopes wasn't actually just coming from Arsenal's relentless attackers. The real danger was brewing within City's own ranks, perfectly embodied by one player acting as a literal ticking time bomb on the pitch. Just look at the unraveling, reckless discipline of Mario Balotelli here. In the early minutes, he picks up a blatant, foolish yellow card. Then, mid-half, he goes in with a reckless high boot that leaves Alex Song writhing in real pain, an incredibly frightening challenge that everyone in the stadium knew was dangerous. As the match wears on into the second half, his frustration just completely boils over. He overruns the ball, he commits unnecessary frustrated fouls, he's bringing unwanted destructive chaos to an already fragile, desperate situation for a City team that is just hanging on for dear life.
And you get this sharp, undeniable contrast taking place right in the middle of the pitch. On one side, you have Arsenal's Mikel Arteta. He's displaying brilliant midfield holding, lovely controlled touches, winning the ball back masterfully, and just demonstrating incredible ice-cold focus. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have Balotelli. Unnecessary fouls, dangerous high boots, and a mounting, explosive frustration that City simply cannot afford in a championship-deciding match. It's literally like night and day.
It was getting so wildly out of hand, so utterly absurd out there, that it prompted this unbelievable call from the broadcast booth, stating in sheer disbelief,
It's a circus, and every time I've been to a circus, that was a late challenge.
That really perfectly encapsulates just how erratic and undisciplined Balotelli was acting. He was completely out of control, practically begging the referee to reach into his pocket and end his afternoon.
And that leads right into Section 3, the breaking point, Arteta's title-defining strike.
So, the pressure cooker, overflowing with Arsenal's relentless attacks and Balotelli's chaotic indiscipline, is finally about to explode. Yet, amazingly, despite all of that chaos, despite Van Persie rattling the crossbar and Arsenal's total territorial domination, the score at halftime sat frozen right here, at 0. Arsenal 0, Manchester City 0. The anxiety was being stretched to its absolute physical and psychological limit. Just imagine the mental toll on these players. 45 grueling, breathless minutes where a single misplaced step means losing the championship. The title was hanging by the absolute thinnest of threads as the players collapsed into the dressing rooms.
Well, this second half brings even more heart-stopping, frantic action. City desperately tries to break the deadlock. Aguero makes these brilliant darting runs off the back of the defense, but the crucial pass just can't find him. Down the other end, the panic resumes as Arsenal's Walcott strikes the post. A mad scramble ensues in the box. Benny Young throws himself at the ball, but fails to force the rebound home. So once again, City breathes a massive, collective sigh of relief. But the storm definitely wasn't over. It was really only a temporary reprieve.
Because then the deadlock completely shatters. Mikel Arteta delivers a terrific effort that finishes off Manchester City's title challenge. He wins the ball back brilliantly, finds himself in a little pocket of space, and absolutely unleashes a breathtaking strike. It is a massive, spectacular goal. It's the exact moment that fundamentally ends City's challenge and seemingly rips the crown straight out of their hands, sending it once more to Old Trafford.
What follows is a total, undeniable, systemic meltdown. First, Arteta scores that breathtaking, decisive goal that sends the Emirates into absolute pandemonium. Then, almost immediately, the inevitable happens. Balotelli, unable to control himself for even a moment longer, slides in for one late, reckless challenge too many and receives a red card. The referee immediately reaches for his pocket, and Balotelli is sent marching right down the tunnel. And finally, the agonizing, painful realization washes over the remaining City players that the match and their precious title is rapidly slipping away into the London night.
Which brings us to our last section, the aftermath. A disastrous day for City. When the final whistle eventually blew at the Emirates, the dust settled on what could only be described as a complete nightmare for the visiting team. The reality of the situation is incredibly harsh. City's left far adrift of Manchester United in the table. They're now entirely reliant on an extraordinary collapse by the defending champions to even have a glimmer of hope. And as decades of agonizing football history tell us, United under Sir Alex Ferguson never, ever falters when the finishing line is clearly in sight. Ultimately, it was an absolutely disastrous day for City's championship dreams.
Which leaves us with this final, haunting thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. After an implosion of this magnitude, the suffocating pressure, the foolish red card, the utter heartbreak of Arteta's late, spectacular strike, leaving the Emirates so incredibly far adrift, would it require an absolute miracle for Manchester City to wake up from this disastrous day and reclaim their title dream? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time.